Welcome to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Kiriakou, and this is the podcast where we aim to help recruiters, founders, managers, business owners get 1% better after every single episode. Every episode is unfiltered, unedited, uncensored, where we just have a free-flowing back and forth conversation with the aim to add tactics, tools, techniques, anecdotes, war stories, all in the hopes for you guys to get 1% better after every episode. It would mean the world to me if you could like, comment, subscribe, follow the podcast on all the channels that you view this on. We have a newsletter as well on LinkedIn if you could go and follow and subscribe onto that as well so you don't miss any episode. And if you find this or any of the other episodes enjoyable, please share them with your friends, your colleagues, and anyone that you think could benefit from it. Enough from me, let's get into today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast with your host, Charles Kiriakou. Today, I'm joined by Gary Trueman from the Arrows Recruitment Group. I think I said that correctly. We've got a brilliant episode today. We were just actually having a wiki conversation before we click record. And I mentioned to Gary that out of 40 plus episodes, I haven't actually had AI as an actual topic. But when Gary and I first sat down and he said, I want to talk about AI. Obviously, he recruits in the AI space, which again, I'll pass over to Gary in a second. But I just said, like I said to everyone, like, how much do you actually know about the topic and how passionate are you? Then he went on like a 10-minute run and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. We'll make that a topic. I'm actually really excited for this one because I haven't really utilized AI enough personally. And it's something that I'm going to start to do a little bit more. So I've personally got some questions for Gary that I think a lot of recruiters, founders, business owners listening to this will get a lot of things to take away for them, for their recruitment business, etc. But anyway, that's enough from me. Let's pass it over to Gary. Gary, for people that may or may not know who you are, what you do, etc., give us a bit of an intro, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on. To start with, really pleased to be here. I'm Gary Trueman. So I am a now long since retired rugby player. So I played rugby for 14 years as a pro. Saracens, majority of my year at Worcester, and then London Scottish. So I turned to semi-professional about 2008. Came to the city, and that's when I looked at what I was going to do life after rugby. Like most recruiters, that older age-old saying, fell into recruitment. And so I've been in the recruitment space for, again, 14 years, or 15 years maybe now, I think. And I've done everything, always technology. So everything's been my technology focus, starting in investment banks, permanent contract, been in within executive search. I've run an agency before. I've been internal, so I've run heads of talent before, like so Just Eat on the contract side and PwC. And then, I've joined up the forces in the Major Group, which is made up of three main brands, major players, which look like a digital marketing creative, Build Circle, which is a technology consultancy for companies looking of how they utilize their data, AI journey, and then Arrows, which is, like I said, a long-standing technology recruitment business, which looks after everything technology. And in the last year, I've kind of taken over all that business, shaped it into two core service lines. One is focused on emerging technologies. As you mentioned earlier, my passion's around this sort of AI, data space, and all those kind of niche technologies that are changing the world for good in my eyes, but for bad potentially in some others outside of it if you're not willing to embrace it. But so we're really set up on that AI data and all the tributaries around that. And then we've got a talent solutions team, which looks after everything for companies looking for enterprise clients, statements of work, contract work across the UK and Europe. And it's the core business at the moment. So that's nice. That's my background.
Happy days. So the first topic, as we said a second ago, we're going to kind of split this episode in half, really. And I think there will be some commonalities in both the topics. But first topic we'll talk about, obviously, is AI in recruitment business and how we can utilize it, how we can get on the analogy I gave is get on the surfboard and ride the wave with AI rather than be submerged by it. How to prompt your recruitment process, talking about automation. I know you and your business have invested hugely in automation training, etc. But then the other half of the show will be, again, there'll be similarities in both topics, but it's all about the high performing teams. Obviously, you've come from a rugby and sports background. I think most successful recruiters I've worked with have either come from a sports background or something along those sort of lines. So that'd be quite interesting. But the first topic, Gary, the AI in recruitment. I mean, I don't know if you were at the Recruitment Agency Expo, but it was mentioned over 115 times at the Expo. Every single stand, there was something along the lines of AI, automation, and a lot of feedback people gave was that as much as it is this huge trend at the moment, and I can understand why it's a trend, it was almost a bit fatiguing when we were at the Expo because it was everything, everywhere that you went. And as I said to you before we click record, I have not been utilizing AI as much as I can be in what I do. And this is coming at a very good time, because I definitely start getting back on that surfboard and riding the AI wave. But why don't you, I guess, to start things off, talk us through a little bit about some of the tools that you use, for example, or, you know, for people like myself that are kind of new to it, like what's the sort of best ways to start utilizing it, do you think?
Yeah, do you know what? The first thing is, the reason it's getting talked about everywhere is because it is going to transform the industry. I mean, it already has. It's been around for years and years. You think about, all CRMs, have been using AI of some form, some shape or form. The difference is now it's the speed of which it's transforming the industry is. I mean, it's frighteningly quick. All the pictures I've been getting as a CEO have all been, about CRMs, things like now more getting around what chatbots can we build for you. It's happening that quick. So it is fatiguing, but it's also, it is, you have to get on board with it. You have to embrace it. You can't, and I think this is the big thing now. I think, everywhere I look, AI has been talked about in recruitment. And so I think if you're a team, and that's a bit whether I think I'd say the internal TA landscape is probably a bit further ahead. They're really on top of where they're going to find the automations for businesses. Recruitment agencies, I think if they're not already doing it, then they have to be pretty quick, because it's changing the landscape from a sourcing perspective. So I guess the first thing to do is you have to fully embrace it. You've got to really, really get on board with it, whether you're a business owner, whether you're even if you're a recruiter or business owners such as yourself, you really have to be looking at the ways in which you can improve your business, improve your processes, improve your own output, take away your admin. It can literally do all of it. And I think once you start playing, I think the first step is to really start playing around with it, and then after that, you'll see that. In terms of tools, I mean, there's so many. I think, the key ones for people that everyone will know heard of ChatGPT, unless you've been under a rock for the past 2 years. So everyone will know that. Then you've got things like Google's Gemini, you've got Microsoft's Copilot. The key to finding your day-to-day, what I call, which is it's a thought partner, right? I think the other thing to remember with AI is, especially things like ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot, is they are not the answer; they're your thought partner, right? And I think when you think of I think I saw a stat somewhere around the IQ of ChatGPT now. It's the smartest person in the world times 1,000. Why would you not have that person sat there on a second screen with you at any one point in the day to ask you something, to question it? So I think that's really, really important that people see it like that. Because I think the moment people think of their sort of AI or ChatGPT or whatever it is you use as the answer to their problems, that's the problem. You can't use it. It has to be something you use as a thought partner, to take that. It's still you. It's still you're the one who's driving it. It's your brain. That's what people want to invest in. But you've got this incredible source of knowledge at your fingertips.
I like that analogy so much, because I think a lot of people, again, at the expo and people that I know that had this thought about AI replacing the recruiter. And again, like, who knows, because AI is changing so much. I mean, you must have seen the video a few years back of Will Smith eating spaghetti and The Rock eating rocks. And then they've done the exact same prompt like 2 years later, and it looks hyper realistic. Well, as hyper realistic as someone eating rocks can be, but you know what I'm trying to say. So who knows down the line? I mean, I went to a networking event last week, and they were talking about this AI system that can scrape multiple like job boards, LinkedIn, etc., and can source for talent and send you can prompt like a template for a message, and it can send these messages like emails to these candidates, or emails if they're on CV Library or whatever. And that will just work 24 hours a day until it's got a short list of, say, for example, you prompt it like, I want a short list of 100 people. And one of the topics of the conversation at this event was like, will that be the death of the resourcer? And one of the people on the panel was just like, call me old fashioned, but until the AI can physically pick up a phone, build rapport, go out for coffee with that person, you can still have like candidate, like excellent manager or candidate excellency managers or delivery managers, etc. But their job will be, all they'll do essentially is just be on the phone all day, every day, because AI is doing all the legwork essentially of finding the profiles, finding the numbers, building the shortlists, and et cetera, et cetera. And all that delivery consultant will be doing is doing 100 calls a day, calling candidates, building relationships, getting interview leads, etc. And no admin, because the AI agent will be uploading the notes to the system and stuff. It'll be sourcing for talent in the background. Personally, if I was running a recruitment business now, and that was, even if it was £100 a month, £200 a month per consultant, I'd be invested in that 100%.
Yeah, well, you're right, and also I think that's kind of why we're really looking at this AI in the future of recruitment, because you're talking about the old person there who's saying the death of a recruiter. Well, potentially the resourcer, I wouldn't be surprised if the way it's sourced. I mean, obviously, look, there's a hell of a long way to go because it's all still based on the data. But ultimately, even ChatGPT's launched AI Operator, which now operates in the browser, as you're talking about. So, that's evolved already in the last sort of 3-4 months. You've got AI's research. There's a whole new thing on ChatGPT around the deep research. I mean, you're talking then you can also start to match clients, you can match customers, you can match, you can find these. So yes, the difference is at the moment, I think it's the quality of your relationships and the quality of the client relationships, your customer relationships. If you're from the agency side, becomes absolutely paramount, because you're still going to have the same AI working for the same people. They're still going to do the same, talent still can be speaking or is still available to those people, but they're still going to have to speak to people at some point. My personal view is that it's not going to take out that personal relationship that people are going to have or want to have with people. But you've got to remember, I think, up to maybe even 5 years ago, maybe less than that, people would not want to be dealing with chat agents or automation via WhatsApp or whatever it is. I think that's totally going to change in the next few years. Martin Redstone, who we deal with quite a lot as our consultancy, has been building bots for years. This world is going to be more that people are going to be more accepting of that. So that will take one step away. So again, that resources step does go away. So I think there is an argument to say that role in particular will need to be reshaped, or the people who have been resourcing will need to be either relationship managers or kind of much more. Again, I think it's making sure that personal element around what are people's drivers that you can't get. If someone's looking for a job and you're speaking to them, you can kind of tell. You can talk to the NLP. You can work through what their drivers are for doing that. No automation can do that. They can give you the best people. They can shortlist them. Are they going to be able to really sense the kind of emotional quotient of when you're sat there in front of someone, being able to sympathise or empathise with their situation about what's going to make them move, or why do they want to move? What's important to them as a candidate? That's the bit that AI won't be able to do for me.
Yeah, I think it will just be a very long time, right? I don't know if I mentioned to you the first time I met you, but I met with a guy called Ezra Chapman, built Red Commerce, etc. You might be familiar with him. I went to his office in London, and his key passions in life at the minute is machine learning, quantum computing. And I said to him jokingly, and this was only a few months ago, but this is where my sort of mindset around AI was kind of how the people looked at cars when they first got invented, or social media when they first got invented. And I was just like, is it really going to replace a reputable trainer or a coach sitting down face to face, building rapport? And he showed me a video of one of those Tesla bots lying to the guy so that he could read his facial patterns to then accurately. I think he said the Tesla bot said, I've got an 85% chance of winning in rock, paper, scissors. In the time that I said, can you explain the rules? I was just mapping out your micro muscle movements, which again is part of NLP, but he's able to do this on just a 100% accurate level. And I just remember he put the phone down and went, well, and I just shit myself, Gary. I'm not gonna lie. I shit myself. I was like, fuck, man. I've seen too many movies for this with this type of thing where it's gone wrong. And I'm just like, that's quite
it's funny, but what's the interesting bit as well, as I was speaking to a colleague of mine who has a therapist, right? And she said that she took some advice to, when the therapist is away, from a friend of ours, she said, look, why don't you engage your ChatGPT to act as your therapist for you? And so she did it in a way, told her all the problems, and also said, actually, can you do it in the style of who the two therapists that she follows and likes their style?
Yeah.
And so now she started creating, when she was, felt anxious about a pitch, or started to feel a bit, I'm not sure quite what to do here, described it to them, and then got feedback from a voice that was basically the same tonality as someone she respects in the field. And so she stopped her therapy face to face for now, because she's like, actually, the budget's a bit tight. I could do it just over this, and this is working for me just as a short term hit. It's not necessarily going to deal with the potential long terms and the purpose, etc. And I was like, wow. So just little things like that, it shows how, and then she's given to in a tonality of someone that she respects in the in the world. So it's like every industry, things like that, where you think you need a professional touch, does need to be rethought. It needs to make sure it is real. And again, you've got to be careful of the data that's coming back from these there is on what available data there is. There can be hallucinations in that. So it is really important that, especially when it becomes to sensitivities around things like that, and the mind and the brain, and if you're getting misinformation from what you can't trust, so you have to come with it does come with risk still.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think my worry is, so we're our baby's due in 3 months. We're recording this end of March, and that generation they're calling Generation Beta, or the AI generation, because they're going to be like, when I'm a millennial, so we were kind of immersed in technology, I suppose, like the massive rise. This generation coming in it'll just be AI everywhere, right? I guess the generation underneath me, when they got into school, social media was just it was just there when they first got into school, and we've seen some of the damaging effects it's had on that generation of the constant comparing each other on social media, going home, escaping your school bully, but then just logging onto Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc., and still being bullied on socials. What do you? And again, this is slightly off topic from recruitment. I'll go back in a second, but I mean, do you have any concerns overall with like the next generation coming in with, like that example you said there about, not seeing an actual person with therapy and having like a chat GPT type of thing? Do you see any sort of issues with like the next generation coming with that?
Yeah, 100%. We were having this conversation. I've got a 10-year-old daughter. Just watched Adolescence on Netflix, which was pretty frightening, but also amazing. And I was actually, the conversation we had is, what jobs are they going to go into? What are you going to go to uni for? Unless you're super skilled in, it's a real, skill set that's going to lead you to a doctor's job or something like that. What it was really difficult, which we're literally listing all these jobs which grads go into, and that's why the grads at the moment are really struggling to get entry level work. The cost of living at the moment, hiring a recruiter in the UK, it's really expensive right now. The cost of we just as a group, as a business, and every other business owner has to now find another 15%. Just to make exactly what we were making now. It's not an easy time, and especially for the future generation, it's genuinely pretty worrying. I'll be honest. So it's something I don't have the answer to yet, because we were literally a group of us around the table trying to work out exactly what that's going to look like. And I think there's an argument to be bringing them into they're changing the curriculum now. AI is coming into the curriculum. That's something new that's happening. So I don't know. It's pretty scary though. And it's my biggest fear of a 10-year-old girl who's about to go into senior school with all the social media issues that are rising. So it's a problem. We just got to monitor it, I think, and make sure you're on top of it, and explain to them that they are much better now. Explain it, from a sort of younger age, but it's all very well and good until it starts happening and it's real, and then you have to make sure you're on top of it. But so it's an ongoing worry that.
I can imagine. I haven't really thought about it too much. I mean, a few podcasts I listen to that talk about it and talk about what do you think the future will look like in 10, 15 years, etc. But I think that's probably a good shout, to be honest, in terms of implementing that in the curriculum, because obviously I don't know what it's like in schools now. My nephew's 7, but he's not old enough to really know what social media is and stuff like that. But when we were in school, I first logged into Facebook when I was like in year 9. That's when social and Facebook back then was great, because there was no ads, there was no corporations. It was just you and your pals just taking pictures of you at school. It was great. And then it just evolved. And now it's just like, I mean, this morning I was doing my weekly journal, and one of my goals was just delete socials for the week, just as an experiment. So I used to do that every now and then, but it just gets like, just too, with the social media and stuff, like even sometimes with LinkedIn, mate, I feel like I get burnt out with it. And it's like, everyone, I'm delighted to confirm I've just won £1 million prize. And you're like, okay. I need a break.
It's a difficult one, LinkedIn, because obviously it's and there's a couple of the guys who run Move who in the embedding space who I really rate, and they're excellent on social media. They're brilliant on LinkedIn, and they post a lot of tips. And I think what they do is they use it as a place to post positive, free content. And that's probably the best way to use it if you're looking to sell on LinkedIn. Again, I'm not too good on my socials. I need to get a lot better and talk about what we're doing. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It can be quite a tiring place, and it's quite, and is it a bit? It kind of reminds me of like everyone's talking about how good they are. No one talks about the bad times. And some of the best people do on there, but like it's very much that sort of place. It's it feels very much smoke and mirrors in many respects right around. Is this real? Is this real? Yes, you've done this, but
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. It can be quite a taxing place, but it's got a hell of a lot of strengths. It's a great place for knowledge sharing and gaining. I use it a lot for that kind of thing. But yeah, it can be like it's like any other form of social media. It went from being pure business 10 years ago to kind of a bit of everything now, isn't it? Self-promotion.
100%. And to be fair, I mean, I saw this lady post something about has LinkedIn become Facebook? It's like just such a dead argument now. Like it's like when people like, work from home doesn't work or off. Like anyway. Yeah, I saw this woman do this post, and I commented on it saying it great engagement bait, because it's just like she's obviously baiting people into engage with her content. But for me, the lady that had run my house doing the podcast last week, we were talking about reframing, and I've tried my best to reframe that. If I see, say, another coach that's like sold out a course of 500 people or has done this, and immediately your brain goes to, fuck, they're doing better than me. Oh shit. And it goes into comparing. So I'm trying my best to reframe things of, that's an interesting like tactic, or that's an interesting idea, that I'm going to see if I can take some inspiration from that rather than compare, because I'm on my own journey. But it's when you're having to do that after it, because like you said, with LinkedIn, is I've got this promotion, I've set this business up, I've hit my target. Instagram is I'm on holiday, I'm in Dubai, I've bought a new car, and it's just like it's constantly like, look how amazing life is and business is. So I try and reframe both those social medias to I'm taking that as inspiration or a new idea. But like I said, after a while, it does get a bit exhausting, and I think like with anything in life, right? You need to take a break every now and then, and
100%, And I think it's exhausting. I think you just need to take a step back and remind yourself that Instagram is for showing off, right? Instagram is literally for people to post really, really good things. So don't expect to see. If you can just take yourself out of a position of which is so hard, because I do it as well. You can't help but contrast and compare. But actually, if you just go, I know I'm going on Instagram to watch people show off about things or to talk about good things. That's quite. If you see it like that, you go, okay, that's a positive. But you know that 50% of everything else that's probably going on in the world isn't positive, and that's just life. Yeah. But it's really hard to do that when you look at it and go, that's good. That's I want to be there. I want to be there. I want to be there. It's good. No, be happy for them. They're in a good place at the moment, and that's why I want to watch it.
100%. And do you know what? For you and I, where we're a little bit more mature, we've been in the game for a while. It's slightly easier. My worry is, I'll give you a really good example, right? Because you used to be an athlete. I've been training martial arts most of my life, and at the moment I just do strength training at the gym, and I'm getting back into running. So as you can imagine, my algorithm will show me, even though I don't care for being a bodybuilder, but it will just show me that content, right? So constantly my brain is being showed men in like perfect physique, right? In show physique, and you'll see comments of like an average looking bloke like myself who's been hitting the gym for a few years. Nothing, quote, special about their physique, but all the comments are like these 17-year-old boys going, what a mid physique, can't believe you've been training for 7 years, you look like that. And I'm like, boys, and this is a good thing. I say this to guys all the time when I work with them, like younger recruiters, like that what you see on social media ain't real. It's just not. So for me, I look at that and I giggle, because I'm like, that guy's clearly on steroids. That guy's clearly not got a job. His job is recording 2 TikToks a day and then spending 6 hours a day in the gym. He sometimes when I'm out on the road and traveling and I'm going into the offices and all I can eat is a meal deal or a Pret sandwich in the morning, I'm not thinking of my fucking protein count. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking of getting into Aldgate for like 8:30 in the morning. Like, but for like what I'm trying to explain is, I've kind of trained my mind to look at these things now and go, yeah, it's fine. That's just a show off app. But I feel really, really sorry for my nephew who's going to be, going into social media in the next few years, looking at that and then looking at themselves in the mirror and going, oh, fuck, I look ugly, or I'm just not athletic. And then it's just like, nah, man, it's just,
it's rubbish, isn't it?
Thought.
Yeah, no, it's, no, you're absolutely right. It's the worst bit of social media, isn't it?
Quick one from me. If you're enjoying today's video, 2 things. First and foremost, like, follow, subscribe, leave a review, all that kind of good stuff. The other thing is, as you probably already know, the way I fund this podcast is through my coaching business. So if you're listening or watching this podcast, you're probably someone that is all about personal development, right? So if you're all about personal development and you want to develop your mindset, you want to develop some real world strategies, or perhaps it's simply just the recruitment aspect. I've been in this industry over 10 years. I've been in the L&D space for over 3 years now, and I'm so passionate about helping people. I feel like this is the purpose that I've been put on this earth for, is to help people in this recruitment industry. So if you're interested in coaching, in training as a recruiter, or perhaps you're a business owner and you want to upskill everyone in the business, take your company to the next level, then why don't you just reach out to me? You can reach out on LinkedIn. All my contact information is on my banner and in my profile, and also on my website. But that's enough from me. Let's get back into today's episode. Tell me about the other sort of things that you use then, because I'm quite interested. Because when we first spoke, you said that you had like a budget for, automation, tech, and you've also brought someone into your business, right, to help with like automation training.
Yeah, exactly that. So we did, I put the whole team on AI, basically AI training for recruitment. So, but essentially making sure that from a sourcing perspective and how you basically how you run a whole recruitment process, essentially. So it's a 3-hour course. A guy called Martin Redstone. He's really good. We've done a partnership with him. So we kind of do a training session for internal teams. So we host it. They come in and do that. So we got him involved in the team. And we came out of it with so much. I'll talk you through some of the bits around prompting and stuff in a minute, but just really learning how to prompt properly. And that is such a valid skill set if you're going to use these large language models and the OpenAI, etc. But essentially, what came out of that first thing was, obviously, I've known Martin about a year or so. I've been following him for ages because he's like a pioneer in the RegTech space. And I just said to him, I was like, look, these are some of the tools and technologies we're using at the moment. So we use Sourcewell for our outreach campaigns. We've got Sourcebreaker to find out what's happening in the market. We've got Aircall. We've got basically a suite of technology. And I just said to him that what would be really useful is, and I kind of recommend some other companies do this if they think it'd be worthwhile, is just to essentially come in and do a project for us to find out, discover how we're recruiting right now, what we're doing. And it's kind of a bit of a warts and all for the guys. Like, actually be honest, how are you doing it? What are you using? What are you not using? What are we wasting money on that we've invested on? Like most recruitment companies, you go, And essentially then what we're doing, he's building this effectively a playbook around this is future proofing for the future on how to recruit. And a lot of that stuff we talked about earlier. Okay, well, if we've got new tools which we can use to do the sourcing element, great. That's going to free up time here. That's going to help us go into the client side. So basically, we're in the middle of that at the moment, which has been great. And so again, we'll find out at the back of that, and we'll have some potential. The good thing, his course changes every 4 or 5 months because there's new technology, new tools coming into the recruitment market. And that's why you think around attraction, selection, onboarding, enablement, insights. There's probably about 6 or 7 of what would you class as your kind of favorite apps you'd use in those areas if you're an internal team or a TA, a professional. Okay, well then one might drop off, one might be better. And that would constantly evolve. So you kind of got to be on top of it also. We kind of just want to make sure, for me personally, if we're recruiting in the AI space, we're recruiting in the data space, we're recruiting these emerging technologies, I need to make sure we're at the top of the air. If we're going to be talking, out there finding the best people, these top 5% people in this kind of machine learning world and AI world, we need to be making sure we're the top recruiters in this space as well. And we're pioneering that. So that's really good. And I guess the other things around, which is really interesting, is how to prompt properly, because it's all very well. It's how you use the likes of ChatGPT and whatever your tool you use is effectively to get the best out of it, and that is when it changes.
Yeah, well, I want to dive into the prompting side because I've experimented a lot with ChatGPT and other AIs, and there's obviously I need to do a lot more on it, to be honest with you. But what you just said a second ago about like the various different types of automation, like I know Sourcewell very well. I've used Sourcewell. Dougie, who's the CRO there, gave me a membership for a whole year when I first set my business up, which was very, very nice. And I had Emily, who runs their TikTok, on my podcast, talk about how to personalize your email outreach and how to do how to ace your cold calls and stuff. I think that's awesome. Is Sourcebreaker now part of Bullhorn, by the way, or is they still separate?
Sourcebreaker, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's integrated, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, because I remember using Sourcebreaker back in 2016 when it was a Boolean creator. So you'd search in there, territory sales manager, Southeast London, selling X-ray machines, and all it would do was make you a Boolean search. And when I used it a couple of years ago, it could scrape like Reed, Indeed, CV Library, Bullhorn, etc. for CVs, and it was quite good. I don't know how much it's sort of changed now.
Yeah, well, again, I'm not on the floor with it with the guys as much as I used to be, but we tend to use it for a lot more of intelligence, talent intelligence, and where where the people have had investment and things like that to try and make sure we're at the forefront like that. But yeah, there's but yeah, it's been useful. But there's so many. I mean, the talent intelligence space. Obviously you've got LinkedIn Insights. Strategies is one of the best companies I've come across that I've introduced them to one of our clients before when they were looking to relocate. They were looking to hire a whole team of mobile engineers, and they weren't sure where to go. And Strategies were brilliant. They came up and told you not just where the cluster of these kind of hires are, but they kind of give you what you need to know from a regulatory point of view. These are the additional costs that might be in terms of employing them in there. That real kind of detailed research, which is phenomenal.
That makes sense. Yeah. So just the last thing before we go on to the prompts and stuff. Do you think then with like these tools and the what you were talking about, automation, when it comes to like onboarding new staff for recruitment businesses, when I used to do academies, one of the first piece was how to create Booleans, how to source for talent. And if I'll be very, very honest, and I might be shooting myself in the foot here, I fucking hate running that training. I hate it. It's the most boring thing. When I was a recruiter, I couldn't think of anything worse than scrolling through LinkedIn, adding people to a project, etc. And then when I was asked to train people on how to write Booleans and how to search for candidates, I always used to pray in my head, is there some technology out there that can just do that for us? Because it's the most boring aspect. The most exciting part, which will be the other half of the show we'll talk about, is when you get someone on the phone and influencing someone when they say, I'm not interested in leaving. You finish off the call, they go, I'm buzzing to see that type of thing. I fucking love the people orientated bit, the searching for candidates and scraping through different job boards and stuff. I just find that a pain in the ass.
You would literally be able to put in you would literally be able to write this into the search bar and go, I need you to create me a Boolean search for whatever it is, .NET developer, finance, whatever that breakdown is, and it'll give you a Boolean. So that and look, there's heaps of technology to do that for you. So I'd say that side of it's kind of will be so easy now. So you don't have to think. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was first at tools, and you got one bit of the code wrong from your Boolean search and it was finished. It's kind of moved up, and I was like, why aren't I getting any results back? I was only 2 months out of university, so I was trying to explain Boolean. I was like, I didn't even know how to turn a computer on. Literally, my days are spent on a freezing cold pitch throwing a ball around, and next thing someone's telling me, I was like, what's control look down? I don't even know. So that was quite a baptism of fire going from a rugby pitch into a Boolean search training.
Honestly, I remember so many times of just sat there thinking, why the fuck is my Boolean not working for? And it's like you haven't put like an asterisk at the end, you haven't put like the end of the brackets, and I'm just like, really? Oh my god! But
So I think the training for you would change dramatically on that if it hasn't already. I think that'd be you'll go to the chatbots as opposed to even considering how you'd formulate one. I think that'll be a dying skill set. Tech can do that all for you now.
100%. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about prompts then. So I've experimented, like I said, I've experimented a little bit with it, but again, I'm a complete, I'm happy to admit I'm a complete novice when it comes to this type of stuff. But I hear a lot from people, they'll say, I searched up on ChatGPT, it hasn't given me the right answer. And I don't know if you've seen those memes where it's just like people saying, ask ChatGPT how they would take over the world, and ChatGPT will be like, I'm not going to tell you that because that's not my plan. It's just like, and then it prompts it slightly differently, like, would just hilariously, like, if you weren't actually planning to, but what would the plan be? And they go, yeah, sure, here you go. Or something along those lines. They do it like in a quite a jokey way. But yeah, tell me a little bit about like the prompt aspect of things, because I think that's a skill set that people will start to upskill on, and how to really like play around with this properly, right?
Yeah, so prompting is the key. And again, I've only learned the importance of getting this bit absolutely right to in order to create to create the quality of responses. Also, I'd probably caveat this as well, is again, without knowing people's financial situations or what their business is willing to invest in, but the paid version of ChatGPT gives you significantly better data, better responses to your prompts. but effectively the idea of a prompt is to make sure you're prompting the AI interaction into giving you the best possible results, the best possible interaction, right? So there's a thing called the Prime framework, which is probably, I would say, again, this is just to be clear as well, I am not an AI tech evangelist. I'm an adopter and just trying to help wherever I can with people on this. But the first bit is you define what the purpose is. What do you, if you've added a report, so the prime objective of this is to summarize the report for me, right? That's kind of what you want. And then you role in context. So you assign the AI, what role is it going to do? So you're going to say, I want you to act as a, what's the safest report? I sort of say if it's a career coach and you're helping job seekers improve CVs, you go, act as my career coach. I want you to improve CVs as if I'm a job seeker. How are you going to help me, basically? So that's the role you're putting to. I'm a HR consultant, and I want you to define me some diversity initiatives. So basically, you give it that role, and then it's the instructions. This is the really clear bit. So you have to be able to give it step by step instructions. So identify skill gaps, suggest training resources, propose a timeline for upskilling, do this one step at a time. Basically, the more you interact with and prompt, over communicate, like as in, it sounds stupid, but the more you over communicate with it, the better your results are going to be. A classic one, which is a really good thing to do, is to always put in, especially so if this is going out to anyone in the UK, you put please respond in British English, not using Americanisms like analyze with a Z. Stuff like that, right? So it's just one of those things. So if you tell it that, then its responses will come out with it. So then you've got M, so it's models and examples. So can you do this with examples from LinkedIn posts, or can you scour the internet for news articles? Like I say, and it's a bit like what I said to you earlier. So I created a LinkedIn. I prompted ChatGPT. I was like, can you create a style and brand guide for me based on my tone of voice? And then I said, please use all of my LinkedIn posts. So I copied and pasted basically about 40 LinkedIn posts and 2 articles that I'd written, and said, please use this style, take out British and Americanisms. So you've given it clear examples to then work with. And then you evaluate and refine it, and that's the E of the prime, right? So you get it to evaluate. And I think the other thing is, which people forget, is you need to test ChatGPT. You get to critique it yourself. Ask it. Can you now review all the answers you give me and provide a better answer if you think there's if there's room for improvement here. Or now you've thanks for the results. List 3 ways to refine this strategy for inclusivity. Do you know what I mean? So you can really start to test it. And I think then I think another really good example for people, which might be quite useful, is to say you were going to pitch a hiring manager or a client for a new job or whatever. And then you'd kind of you put in a whole, these are the questions I want to ask him. And then you go, so the other thing I do, actually, I'll take it back a step. So if you're going to go and meet a CEO, you go, you prompt it. So you put in, this is the company, this is the guy I'm meeting. You put his LinkedIn added in there. What would be some good questions to ask this guy that might make me seem engaging, et cetera, et cetera. And then at the end, you can also say to him, what reasons would he not want to meet me? What reasons would he not want to engage with me? And can you come up with some ideas for me to counter those arguments? So it kind of gets you, and what it does then, it just gets your brain thinking, I didn't think of that. And then hopefully your brain kicks in and goes, actually, I need to think of this and think of this. And that's that thought partner element to it. So that way of prompting is really, really, really powerful.
I like that a lot. Yeah. Is there any because I know that you mentioned before we click record that there's like resources and stuff like that for people, like maybe some podcasts or like articles and stuff. I mean, obviously I can just go away and just Google get or I could even actually just chat GPT. There's something I want to tell you, actually. This has just popped into my head. I could just chat GPT. So I was listening to it was Mark Cuban on a comedy podcast. It's like Your Mum's House of Tom Segura and his wife Christina. And Mark Cuban was talking, he's a billionaire, obviously, and he was talking about this AI like podcasting tool that's coming out. And what it is you can put in there, like, can you please create me a podcast in the tone of the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast with Charles Kiriakou?
Yeah.
And I want the episode to be 15 minutes long, all about how we can adopt the use of AI. And then what it will do is it will have 2 AI chatbots talk to each other in the tone of this podcast. It will do the same intro. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 1% Better Podcast. I'm Charles, and I'm here with my friend Gary. Gary, how's it going? And the chatbots will be like, yeah, doing well, man. How are you? Yeah, well, good. Thank you. It's a nice sunny day today. So let's get into it. Yeah, the topics of conversation we're going to talk about is adopting AI. So let's just talk about it first. Oh, yeah, man. I saw this meme, and it will literally it will use things like, oh, I saw this meme online on Instagram. Let me tell you about this. But it's the 2 chatbots talking to each other. Obviously, when Mark was explaining this new tool, like the 2 podcast hosts were like scratching their head going, I don't think I could listen to it, because their tone of their podcast is very humorous and like dark. Listening to 2 AI bots going, there was a dark meme, like that would be a bit rough. But then he was like, okay, cool. I would invite you to reframe the use of this new technology. It won't be for people to listen to their 2 favorite podcasters roast each other or, talk about some cool fun times on holidays. It will be an educational thing. So rather than you listening to an audiobook for 6 hours on how to prompt AI correctly for your business or how to, adopt automation, you can literally create a audiobook that's 15 minutes. And just sometimes, because you know what it's like. I mean, I used to read loads of books, and you read it, but only one chapter was actually useful. So you can literally just go away and say, can you basically create me a 15-minute audiobook on the chimp paradox and skip out any of the bullshit and just have actual super takeaways from it? And that's one of the things that people were saying, that, on the topic of AI, that the books and stuff and audiobooks, you might not necessarily need them, because you can just prompt the ChatGPT to just be like, can you just
without take out Blinkist, won't it? Because that's what I use, Blinkist at the moment, which summarizes books in 15, 20 minutes. But again, that could be their license gone. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the podcast I listened to, it was an audiobook called The AI Driven Leader. Mm-hmm. So I'd recommend that. It's quite a good way, especially if you're in a leadership position or you're doing strategy, or that's really, really good. I'll just tell you the other thing, which I think has changed everything. And you talked about the algorithms earlier on Instagram and things like that, is I just started unfollowing a load of people that I just think, why am I following these people? I just started changing my whole follow pattern of following people, all in AI, all in people doing things with data, people doing really interesting things. And it's just changed my feed. For that reason, and I'm starting, and it's kind of like again, into like 1% improvements. It's little things like that which have made a massive difference this year, in terms of just taking a real good look at, why am I following these people? I don't. And I delete Instagram during the day is another thing that's really helped.
Yeah, I do the exact same. I've got an Android, so you can do routines. So it will go to silent and turn your internet off past 10:30, etc. But it puts any app, any notifications that you get, turn off from 9 till 5 every single day, except for weekends. So if my friends send me stuff on Instagram or on X or whatever, I don't get those notifications. But I did a very similar thing actually about 2 weeks after the US election, because I was fully, me and my brother were fully obsessed with the election. Obviously, it was the most historic one in our lifetime. Everything that happened into that, I just found so fascinating. Like, can this person that's been, almost put in jail and almost assassinated, can he overcome all this I can't get my words out, but can he overcome all of this type of stuff and then actually become president and then abolish all the crap that side is going to do? And when he did it, I was like, whoa, this is insane. And obviously, because you're talking about it with friends, because you're Googling and YouTubing and searching things on Instagram, your whole algorithm is just pumping politics to you, which is never fucking good. And years ago, I was just like, oh, I'm not interested in politics. And then as soon as this happened, I was like, right, I'm obsessed with it. And then after the election happened, there was like 2 days that my algorithm was just like celebrations. Everyone was like, it's amazing. And on day 3, it was just the Nazi salute from Elon and this and then that. And then like, I was like, whoa, okay. And I just would never forget just being at home. My wife was like, you okay? Nothing had changed in my personal life. Everything was fine. But I just felt like my entire being was just overloaded with just too much information, where I've been scrolling for hours and hours and hours and just bombarded with negativity and just extremism from either side. And then I just, from that moment, as soon as I felt like that and I felt anxious for something happening thousands of miles away, I stopped following BBC, any
crazy,
news outlets, any political commentators, gone. I just could, and now I don't get that feeling anymore. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm going to still delete it because it's annoying and pointless largely, but it's just, it's scary. It is scary sometimes.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I know exactly what you mean, and that's why I just couldn't take. And also, again, my brain kind of struggles with concentration if I have to switch things off. Like I'm very aware of it now for the ADHD brain, but it's like I find if I just don't have it there to get habitual turning things on and getting switched off by getting distracted with things, it just makes a massive difference. And you're right, it doesn't massively affect your mood. When it's not there, you don't need it. Same with taking technology away from my daughter. She doesn't need it. She misses it for about 10 minutes and then she'll go and find something else to do, So it's like, yeah, I understand. Just going back to your point you made about the podcast is really interesting around the fact that people could potentially be doing this virtual podcast. There's a tool called Synthesia, which can now create your own, your own virtual bot, basically. Right. So I've seen a couple of the guys. I was watching a post with Yasser Ahmed, who's the global head of talent at HelloFresh. He's brilliant guy, very really well versed and playing around with a lot of the AI stuff as well, and asking a lot of questions for the industry. And he created this whole AI avatar of himself. He'd be I can't remember the tool he used for the voice now, but trained his whole voice, and you wouldn't have known it wasn't him doing this video. Yeah, like it's frightening. So all that kind of things now is so real now. So again, you talk about creating engaging content. Well, you kind of don't even have to think about doing it yourself anymore. You can just quickly flick it out, and I wouldn't have known. So yeah, it's. I mean, that's the pace it's moving at. The question is, they're going to have to start putting in regulations around just so you know what's real and what isn't. I just don't know how you can start to monitor it. It's frightening.
Yeah, I mean, they're still trying to do that with social media in terms of, how governments can monitor it and whatnot. And I said this on an episode, I can't remember which one it was, that the way AI is evolving is the way social media evolved from sort of 2007, 2009. And there was a lot of people like, oh, this Facebook nonsense is just, what are we talking about here? Like, it's not going to replace face-to-face, blah, blah, blah. And now you've got like a whole generation of people, like a lot of my generation, I'm millennial, would rather, I mean, I play PlayStation most nights. At the start of this year, I had to have a stern word with my friends. Like, as much as I like playing on a Wednesday night with you and doing a World War II simulator, I'm sorry, but I haven't seen you guys in months. And I get we're all busy, but we need to see each other. And I explained to people that this whole AI movement is exactly what social media was, but just 10 times more insane. And I saw, I was watching a Piers Morgan debate where one of the guests retweeted something, and it was JD Vance saying that Elon is actually South African and he's just parodying an American person, and he's like coming in, he's unelected, but he was an AI chatbot, or whatever you want to call it. It was AI, it wasn't actually JD Vance, but it sounded an awful lot like him. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that we need to monitor and things. It's going to be very, very hard.
Well, that's probably one of the biggest. Again, we're hosting an AI for leaders, for the TA leaders event, and one of the core topics is around data protection, governance. It's massive, because how can a lot of business can't, like for example, they can't be seen to be using these tools yet, because if anyone puts any information about the company publicly, it's out there. I was doing some thought leadership work with ChatGPT around strategy and just getting some ideas on it, and it's like, and it kind of said, can you upload your figures for the year, or prompted me to put them in. I thought, actually, you can't really do that. You've got to be a bit careful around what you put on there. So, the data, the governance, and how that evolves is going to be absolutely crucial. But again, my concern for that is it's going to need a global, a global push on how we do that. And I just don't think that's going to happen, because people are reaping the rewards commercially from it. And we'll get to a stage where it's too late. That's the thing is at what point does it get to the point where you can't control it?
Yeah,
probably, if you read some of the listen to some of the podcasts, listen to the Lex Friedman podcast, who's really good. And I'd imagine that what they were talking about 2 years ago is probably dated, but the guys are saying, we're probably 3 to 4 years away from no turning back. Like, as in, it's kind of like they'll get so intelligent. There's one forecast which is actually frightening. It's talking about there will be a point in 10 to 15 years time where it's proper like AI robot and Matrixy kind of like, where the AI will be speaking a language we don't even understand. It's gonna be that far advanced. I was like, Okay. I'm going to take a little cold shower now.
I mean, did you see the video of the two? Like, they put the two phones together, and there were two separate, like, chat GPTs or two AIs, and they was like, "Hey, Gary, how can I help you?" And it was just like, "Hey, wait, hang on, are you an AI chatbot?" And they were like, "Yeah. Should we just switch language?" And then they just switch, and it sounds like a fax machine going into a spaz.
Yeah.
That whole thing. So my way of reframing the whole AI thing, because when you started to say all that type of stuff, my brain immediately, the RAS part of my brain goes, "Fuck, we're all gonna die." I'm trying my best now to reframe it to, it won't replace us; it will just help us. Everything will be fine.
And I'm of the AI for good kind of thing. I really do think it will help. But again, we kind of need to. It's just how powerful it gets. I'm not technical enough. Sadly, I just like listening to the people that are talk about it. And also, like, you listen to Stephen Bartlett, and they like the drama of making sure it's going to sound the end of the world in the sound bites. But then when you dig into it, there's hope.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, you mentioned something earlier about, like, the focus element, and because the before we finish up, I just wanted to just end on maybe hopefully a lighter topic, I guess, around the high performance aspect of, like, because I'm really fascinated, obviously, as an external coach and as a trainer. A client of mine said this to me the other day. He was like, your job ultimately, aside from just training up people and working with founders, is to protect the business. Because I was explaining to him the aspect of the job that I absolutely hate, but is a necessary evil, is where you debrief with the managing director or the founder, and they go, "Oh, what do you think of Joe Bloggs?" And you're like, "Lovely guy, but just not for your business, get rid," type thing. And I hate that aspect. But if I don't do that, I'm not really protecting the business. But I'm really fascinated about the traits that make a recruiter successful, or what behaviors and habits someone needs to be a high performer. I've had a variety of different answers on that. Focus is typically one. I was always told as a young 20-odd-year-old, "Charles, you need to focus more," which telling someone with ADHD to focus more is like telling someone without any hands to type faster. It's very, very hard. But I'll pose that question to you, really, Gary. I mean, you're obviously running a business yourself. You've worked, you've been a rugby player in Saracens with high performing people. What do you think are the traits, specifically to recruitment, that make someone high performing, would you say?
The thing is, from a recruitment perspective, well, high performance in general, you've got to be hard. Like, for me, that fundamentally, you've got to work hard. Like, you want to work hard, like a willingness to work. And that is whether you're, like, if it was rugby, I got told I was never going to play professional rugby because I didn't have a good enough left-handed pass. So I said to him, "Well, how do I get a good left-handed pass?" And he goes, "Oh," and he wasn't expecting me to actually put it back to him. He said, "Well, go." He said, "Well, every morning before training, you need to throw 1,000 passes off your left hand." And I did that every day for a year, pretty much. And then I couldn't even remember how to pass with my right hand. My left hand was so good. So I think that hard work, dedication is absolutely paramount in whatever you do. I think if you've got that element of, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to get better, like I'm from the old, from recruitment, it was 8:30 to 6:30. If you left at 6:31, you were still leaving early. You got in at 8:31, you were late. So it was weird, but you tend to find it's a lot of hard work. And the world's changed, and that kind of levels, you're going to get burned out. But hard working for me is massive. I think people who are focused, you mentioned, is a massive thing. I think people who do really well and are high performing have really high integrity. So they, and that's not just in terms of what you kind of do on the pitch from a rugby perspective, but from a work perspective, and especially from a group perspective, if you act with high integrity the whole time and you're honest with people, that for me is traits that I really look for when I hire people. They're probably like the biggest things: integrity and respect, massive on my agenda. I need to be able to trust people and know that they have my trust implicitly. Right, I'm a big believer. That's why we talked about the NLP thing. I got into NLP myself because I wanted to help my team, and I wanted to make sure I helped them grow. And it turned out, as you will know from when you do NLP, it turns out being a kind of lesson in self-discovery before it becomes about anyone else. So you have to learn about yourself and how you do and the kind of feedback I was getting from my master prac around, actually, well, have you thought about how you come across when you do this? I was like, no. So I think for me, if you can instill that kind of self-reflection in people to look at themselves and to help them do that and to give them the tools and techniques, and also not external as well. I don't think it should be just one person sort of someone giving advice. So I think I'm really a big believer in those kind of values.
Yeah, I've heard the hard work part from pretty much everyone throughout my entire career. And I remember when I was in my last role as the global head of L&D, the CEO was like essentially a workaholic, right? He was just working all hours of the day, doing the operations side, still making sales calls and stuff. And his mindset, and again, this goes back to what you said about the NLP and understanding how you put your message out there. His mindset was, if I can do it, you can. And I tried to sit down with him many times and say, like, you've got a different sense of drive because this is your baby. This is your business.
Yeah.
The 20-odd-year-old who's, worked in a bar in London for 2 years, just out of uni, and this is their first job, and they don't even really know if they want to do recruitment. They're not going to do the same level of work as you with the same intent because that's just not their belief system. Oh, no, but if they want to be successful, they have to work hard. But then we had other consultants that would work all the hours under the sun, and it gets to the end of the month, they get their, Employee of the Month award. But you actually look at their data and their KPIs, and it's shocking. Like the CVs they've sent, like they've got a CV ratio to interview ratio of like 7-1. So they're having to send 7 interviews to jobs to get a single interview. And I'm like, the quality of work here is dog shit. Like it's all well and good working really hard, but if you're not working to an element of being quite smart or strategic, then it's kind of a waste of time. And if for people like me, I was called by teachers many times lazy, right? But you put me on the football pitch or in the boxing gym, and they would never call me lazy. Sometimes they might say he's quite talented, but I worked my arse off because I enjoyed it. When I was in school, when I was learning things like maths and things like that, I would do everything I possibly could to find a shortcut to get it done so I can go and do something more fun. So when I was in recruitment, how does that transition for someone? And I speak like this because I know a lot of people listening to this will probably have a form of ADHD or this similar sort of personality traits. I remember starting permanent recruitment and taking shortcuts, which by the way is wrong because I didn't have a process, I didn't follow it correctly, but I would maybe only speak to 4 candidates and then just rely on referrals, for example. And that's how I got most of my placements. So there's a good element of it, of, finding the shortcut and not doing as many hours as my colleague, but being smarter and getting better candidates, for example. But I still think if it's a trainee listening to this or someone in their first couple of years of recruitment, a good behavioral trait that turned into a habit of mine that could really be useful. If you ever need to go to the toilet to go for a pee, just make one call. If you really want a coffee, go and just make one more call or send one more email. And if you do that every single day, and you go for maybe 3 toilet breaks, 3 fag breaks, 3 coffee tea breaks, etc., that's like 12 additional phone calls a day. And if you do that every single day, every single week, that's like 50 plus calls extra that you might not have made. So that's kind of like echoing your point there of the hard work. If you're like me that maybe tries to take the shortcuts and tries to do things a little bit quirky, just make that extra little call. That as a habit,
I like that as well. But I kind of like the empowerment piece. I'm not one of those guys who goes stick. You can do this, this, and this. I like having data, and I like managing data and people around data because it tells you stories. That's the bit I like about bringing data and bringing it to life, right? I'm not there to go, I'd rather tell the story over, if you've got to take a month and you put it into 2 weeks, right? You can kind of see how people are in 2 weeks, and that drives conversation, not just around their performance. If the performance is behind in certain areas, you can see which areas are you struggling with this. For me, that kind of data-led approach to management is really good because it encourages conversations. And you tend to find a lot. And I think anyone who doesn't invest the time in understanding the people and what their drives are outside of work. There was an amazing woman who I'm still really good friends with called Anna Rasmussen, who runs the Open Blend Method. She was my original coach, NLP. She trained, not as a master practitioner for my own certification, but just my first introduction to NLP about 10 years ago. And she was transformative for me in terms of understanding people and making sure you really understand everyone in the room. And actually, that's how you need to speak to that guy. His rep system is you're speaking to him as a visual person. He's kinesthetic. So that kind of thing is really important to get to understand. That gets the best out of people. Fundamentally, then, if you're having conversations constantly around people's data, you can find out, is there something going on in their personal life? Are they just not doing things? Are they just not good at it? Fundamentally, do they not want to be here? And you can find it. For me, I think that empowerment-led management is kind of, I guess, it's my style. And I just think then people will want to work for you. It's just, you just need to make sure that producing the output in the way that they do. Some people might want to stay late 3 days a week and then go home early. That doesn't bother me. It's all about the end result, making sure candidates are having a good experience, clients have a good experience, and get good quality. And we're continually improving, and I think that, but one thing you talk about 1%, so we do that every quarter. Like, what can we do better now? What's better? What was bad? What can we take out? What can we improve on? I think that is massive. I think that comes from what was the sporting culture, right? It was always like, how can we improve constantly? How can we do better off the pitch? So what can we do better at home? What can we help people with? So I think if you're constantly thinking like that as a manager or a leader, or even if you're managing a team yourself internally within a recruitment organization or any organization, I think it's a really good place to be.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I had, so out of the 40 odd episodes that I've recorded now, I've not had a single, besides one, same answer to the 1% better question. But I did a live podcast at the Recruitment Agency Expo in March, and recorded my first episode of 2025 a couple months back, with the episode that's going to come out on the 1st of April. So I don't know when this will come out, but anyway, they both said each quarter do a personal SWOT analysis. So what you've done, similar to what you said, what you've done well, what your weaknesses were, what opportunities there are going to the next quarter, what threats to stop you from achieving those things. And obviously, recording this, it's the 31st of March. So I've written down my plan of the week, but what I want to do today is do a strategy session alone, and I'm going to be using your prompts as well with ChatGPT as my essential co-founder now, because it gets lonely being in this room alone every day. So that would be quite useful. But there was something else I was going to mention on what you just said then a second ago. It slipped my mind now because I've just gone on a little tangent. It might come back to me. We're talking about NLP, weren't we? Oh shit! This happens sometimes. It slips my mind when you do these things, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I'm going to do the SWOT analysis, and I think that's a really, really good tip as well, just in general for people listening to this. Of even if it's just the end of the week. Oh, it's come back to me, by the way. It's come back to me.
Yeah.
I hate it when that happens, especially when you're recording a podcast. Never a worse time for that to happen. What you said about managing through data, I just want to echo that for people, because if someone's listening to this that maybe manages a team or manages a business or wants to be a manager, I explain this to people all the time. If you sit down and say things like, I feel like you could be doing more, or it seems like this, but there's no evidence to back it, you're just talking in pure emotions. And when you're managing people and trying to develop consultants, get the fucking emotion and throw it out the window, because it doesn't have a need for that particular moment. The emotion can come to, say, for example, someone's hitting their KPIs, but the quality isn't good. You can see them working. If you want to show a bit of emotion, like, I fucking believe in you, you can do really, really well here. You just need to make that extra one phone call, or, ask the question, or close at the end of the candidate qualification, whatever it might be. That's where your emotion can come in. But when I go into businesses, Gary, and I'm like, so how do you track your data? How do you manage? And they go, oh, we don't. And I'm like, hang on. So you want to grow this business. You want to get to the X amount of revenue, X amount of employees, X amount of offices, but you don't track any of the data. So what does your Friday wrap look like? What does your Monday morning kickoff look like? Oh, we don't do that. I'm like, are you fucking
it's also not fair on people, because what tends to happen is then you get knee-jerk reactions because somebody hasn't done any BD calls in 2 weeks, or they don't feel like they've got anywhere, or you haven't had any meetings, and then you'll give them negative feedback based on that. That's not fair. You have to say, listen, look, I've looked at the data for a month. You haven't booked any client meetings. For me, this is why I need you to, and this is what I need you to do, because that's not going to, you've got to have that data-led approach, I think. Otherwise, it's not fair on your consultants, because otherwise you are giving them knee-jerk reactions. And then same as the other way, they can just say to you, I've booked 3 meetings, and then, they didn't happen. Well, if you can't track it, you can't, if you can't manage it.
Exactly.
So if you can't track it, then you can't communicate on it.
100%. This will be, you will like this. We're talking about storytelling, right? Before we move on to the final question in a second, I was explaining to a consultant why I think they're going to blank next month the other day. And the consultant looked and was like, and again, they don't track data, but he's been tracking things in a personal spreadsheet. And I said, right, so you see why you blanked in month 1 and month 2 of the year? It's because in November, you stopped doing BD because you were so busy. December, you filled all your jobs, but you didn't do any BD at that point. So going into January and February, you had no pipeline of new jobs because you weren't chasing your leads, you weren't keeping in touch with your target client list. So what have you been doing for the first couple of months? He was like, going out, meeting candidates so I can take them to market, and then speccing out. Cool, what's happened in March? I had my record-breaking month. Why? Because you've spent the last 2 months finding unbelievable candidates. Sorry, my phone's ringing. It's coming through this, not my mobile. It's very strange. Sorry about that.
I was putting on a message.
I was like, that's very annoying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the reason why you've had a record-breaking month is because you spent January speaking to high-level candidates. You spent February speccing them out to high-level clients, and lo and behold, coming into March, a crescendo has happened, and you've placed a bunch of these high-level candidates. But what have you done in March? You've just been managing interview processes and stopped speccing out. You've stopped speaking to clients, going on client meetings.
Yeah.
So my anticipation is because your client meetings are low, you probably won't take on any logos going into April, which means realistically, either you're blank in April and May, or you might scrap a couple of deals here and there. And you could just see like the light bulb in his head go, it's like you can see in the future. And I'm like, but the thing is where I've been a sales manager before, you have to forecast and pipeline for 3, 6, 9, 12 months ahead. And I had to sit down with my director. My director was a bright red personality. So if I said, oh yeah, Gary's doing quite well, I don't care. I just need the numbers. Your job is to care about him and his family and stuff. Yeah. I just need numbers so I can forecast. So what you're saying there about the data is just, and there's tools nowadays with AI that you can use to help with this, and you can use ChatGPT and prompt it to organize a 5-minute short, sharp, snappy meeting with your consultant or with your manager or whatever. So yeah, again, obviously you can tell I'm very passionate about that because there's so many people don't do it, but it's so fucking important, man. It's so important.
Yeah, it's massive. Yeah, it's massive. That's another tip actually for you, for anyone who's listening, is there's a website called there'sAnAIforthat.com. So you can literally type in whatever you need. Yeah, Google it in. Yeah, make sure you type it in properly, because we were doing this in the workshop we did, and somebody typed it in wrong and then ended up getting a virus. So there's the THERESANAI for that.com. You can just type in whatever you want. I need to build a presentation. It'll come up with loads of different AI options for you. You can say, I need to create a song. It's my own, and it'll come up with AI tools that are out there for that as well. Some paid for.
Yeah, so I'm looking at that now. So I'm going to go to the gym after this, and my warm up on the treadmill or the cross trainer will be spent experimenting with this. So,
well, you can set the other thing you could do, right? This is how. I know you're going to ask me one of the things with your last question, was it about the 1%, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're there yet, but yeah, you have to kind of use it like we're using it outside for our personal life as well. ChatGPT, right? You can say to him, "No, I'm going to the gym. I want to get bigger in the space of a month. What would be a routine to do that?" He'll build you it. And but also, can you do it off of if there's someone you follow who you really like? There's a guy who I really rate at the moment called Ollie Marchant, who's into fitness. I could probably go, "Can you create me a training program for 12 weeks that Ollie Marchant would follow, or one that he's done?" He'll probably come up with it. I haven't done that, but I'd imagine it's that kind of thing, right?
So that's actually really useful. Again, I said this a lot on the podcast, but like I come to the end of a lot of episodes and I forget that there's probably other people listening, but I go away from a selfish perspective and there's so many things that I think I can learn. I've always struggled. I had a PT back in 2023 before my wedding, and he was the best. He changed my perspective on PTs. I don't think he realized he was using some of the language patterns and stuff. But when I first sat down and said, I want to put a bit of weight on, he asked me the question, why? Tell me a little bit more about that. Why else do you actually want to do that? Like 5 times. He asked the 5 whys as to why I wanted to put weight on. Whereas most PTs, they go, yeah, fine, here's a plan, rah, rah, rah. But after that, I found it quite difficult with so much noise on the internet of like, here's how much protein, here's the type, never do this exercise, you should only do that, never do that. And it's like, fuck me. So I always thought, I just want to have a PT and just be like, look, can you just come and spot me and just like make sure my form's right and maybe create me a diet plan and stuff like that. But that's really, really silly of me to not really think that I can just go onto ChatGPT and be like, here's like my data from the last like 3 years of going to the gym. This is typically the diet that works for me. These are the things that bloat me. These are the things that work for me. Create me a nutrition plan and a workout plan. That's just like why I have not thought about that. So silly.
Do you know what I'd recommend you do as well is, right? So this is something again would be one of my tips I was going to give everyone is ask your AI to interview whichever one you use. Just say it to you, right? This is I'm Gary. This is my this is my job. This is what my family life is. This is here.
Yeah.
Can you now interview me? 10 questions, one at a time, and get everything you need to know about my life and my job. So basically, then remember this for any interaction I have with you. And then also, so what you've done then is it's now built a profile of you. So you do it for yourself. Charles, this is me. This is my business. This is what I'm trying to do. And then it saves it back. So now anytime it answers for you, it's remembering you. In the same way when I do a style guide. So whenever you write emails, say you've sent out 50 emails in the past, just go, can you create a style guide for me a style guide and a brand voice based on my email messaging tone? And that way, anytime you need to write an email to someone, you go, actually, can you just write an email to this client for me saying I'm going to be late, I don't know, whatever it is, and then it'll just do it for you, and then you copy and paste it. It's stuff like that where it's going to really streamline your time. And if you spend, so my biggest tip to people is spend some time, invest in it, getting to know you. And the other thing is clear it up as well, because I was giving some advice to one of my friends at home who runs he's cleared storage sets for film and cinema. And so I was showing him how to help build a strategy for him and help build a LinkedIn campaigns and social media, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is, next time I went to use it a couple of times, it started to give me some weird answers around my business. And because it's remembered that, because I put it onto my ChatGPT. So be really careful, whatever you keep, especially if you're using it for work, that anything you've used that's outside of it or might confuse it, just delete it if you don't need it, or copy and paste it and save it somewhere else. So if you want to keep it really, really streamlined and focused for one area of your life, you can create projects now, by the way, so you can actually keep things in there. So you could have work, you could have personal life, you could have gym. So you can actually separate. But if it's just in the blanket field, it will remember everything. And the other tip is definitely try and, if you can afford to, it's £20 a month, so it's not cheap with everything else in the cost of living at the moment. But if you can find a way to do that, if you're really going to put the time into ChatGPT, again, there's other options on the other ones, but it's well worth it. You get much better results, you get much better searching, you get much better feedback. So yeah, that'd be 100, definite.
Nice. Okay, happy days. I think I'm definitely converted into getting the ChatGPT, the paid version, because to be honest with you, I've only used the free version, and there's been times where it just looks like a bunch of gobbledygook, and I'm like, I've tried with that. I've watched a couple of videos on how to prompt it, and there's a few comedians that I listen to that are just obsessed with AI right now, and that's all their content. And they were talking about the prompts, and I didn't realize they used the really expensive one, the £200 a month one. So do you reckon then for people listening to this, if you do have the money, I know obviously money's tight for a lot of people, but £20 a month for that version is much better then?
Yeah, again, that gets you 4.0. Which is just much better. It's just huge. If you think of the data set is what makes it so good, right? And the data set's just so far in advance. It'll be 5.0 soon, I'm sure. But yeah, I haven't experienced. I've got couldn't advise on anything around the £200 a month one, so I haven't used that yet. But all I know is from like I say, running the business here and everything I get personally from it, as well as it's game changing difference between the free one.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll look into that. Perfect. All right. Well, I think you basically answered the last question anyway, with the several tips that you've given and the hundreds of tips you've given the listeners and viewers throughout the entire episode. So, no, really, really appreciate you taking the time today, Gary. I've absolutely loved this conversation. Like I said at the start of the episode, there's been dozens of people I've said, we're not going to talk about AI unless you can actually educate me and talk about it with passion. And you've done that brilliantly well. I do feel like we could talk for a very, very long period of time after this, but we've already been going for nearly an hour and 15. So we will have to take a stop now. In terms of people reaching out to you, because I know that your business is going to be growing, and some people might listen to this and just want to drop you a message. I mean, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, would you say?
Yeah, drop us an email. Find me on LinkedIn, Gary Trueman. Email at Gary@Arrows Group. Anyone who's interested in AI data, if anyone wants any follow up on that, I'm happy to have a conversation with people or point them in the right direction. Again, we do training courses on this. We've got a partnership with Martin, so if anyone's interested in training their teams, I can help facilitate that if they're interested in conversation. But happy to help anyone.
Nice one. Perfect. All right, Gary, thank you very much. And for people that have made it this far, like, subscribe, do all that kind of good stuff. And until next time. Thanks so much for watching today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, like, subscribe, follow, drop a comment on either platform and message me on LinkedIn what your biggest takeaway of today's episode is. If you also feel like somebody else could take some value from this, repost it, share it, tag someone in. If you think you or someone else could be a fantastic guest as well, put them in touch with me or get in touch with me yourself. We're always looking for new guests. And we only really have legends on this, as you can probably tell already. So as I mentioned, like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. It genuinely helps so much. And I've got massive plans for this podcast, and we're loving doing it every step of the way. Keep getting 1% better, everybody. Let me know what your biggest takeaway from today's episode is, and I'll see you next week.